Welcome back, everyone, to our third episode of our Tickets for Two podcast, where we aim to provide our unique insights on films and possibly TV shows. All right, Santi, what are we talking about today?
Today, on episode 3, we're talking about a crazy movie. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Andrew, what did you think?
Man, right out the gate when I left the theater or left the theater room, I felt refreshed. It definitely was a very unique concept of a movie. I loved it. It was colorful. It was bright. The action sequences were on point. I loved all of it. Like I mentioned, it was a breath of fresh air. What about you? What'd you feel like?
Yeah, I'm a bit more mixed on the film, but I can't deny that it's different. It's really different than anything you've ever really seen recently out in the theaters.
Right.
Really powerful, emotional movie. I think it has high highs, some low lows. But out there's a lot of people who love and appreciate this film, and I completely understand it. It's really different.
I definitely understand that too. Like when you mentioned, right now I feel the box office or just movie theaters in general are dominated by these comic book movies, Marvel. Once in a while a DC film comes in, or just your cliche type of storylines and films. So with A24 has never let us down. So for them to bring out this idea, it was a nice way for viewers to see something brand new. I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's cool to see A24 kind of expand their catalog constantly. Sometimes they had some very certain genre of films that are making,
like horror films usually. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, a ton of horror films. Now they're expanding, making this movie, which you can argue is kind of like has superhero elements in the movie, but
in some way you're right.
Yeah, but still has that kind of A24 more emotional impact, more meaning kind of touch.
Before we continue talking about this, what do you think is your favorite A24 movie?
That's a good question. I would have to look at a list of all the A24 movies. I might have forgotten which ones were and weren't, but I really liked Uncut Gems.
That's right, they did do Uncut Gems. I remember that.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like I don't remember always which ones they've done, but for me, I would say Uncut Gems. What about you? While I take a look at their catalog.
It's funny that you say that. I'm looking at their catalog right now too. I didn't know that they did Swiss Army Man. I don't know if you ever saw the movie.
This is the same. Everything Everywhere All at Once is the same directors.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I really loved Swiss Army Man. Like that was a very unique film as well. But I think did they do Hereditary or did they not? Was that different? They did Hereditary. Oh my god, that movie just also has a little special place in my heart.
Yeah. The I think what are their names? They're Daniels or something. They
Safdie
they
brothers?
did Swiss.
Oh no, that's different.
No. The ones who did the Swiss Army Man. They did this movie. Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert.
There we go.
They did both those films. Yep.
Well, I can tell why I liked it. It was really good. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to why we're here. All right. So you liked it right off the bat, but you mentioned you had your little problems with it. But what worked for you when you first was watching it through with it, like your first time? Like what caught your attention?
I think for me, definitely the cinematography and the action scenes I thought were really well done. The action scenes were super easy to follow. It was really creative in how they did it, and it just kind of like hooked you, especially like the early parts of the film. It seems there's so many fast cuts. It seems a little like crazy at times, but it really kind of sets you in the mood of what Evelyn, the character, is going for.
Right, definitely. What do you think about their choreography when they came to the fight scenes? Did you think that was pretty well made?
Yeah, it was well done, and like I was saying earlier, most movies, like there's a fight scene, you can't really tell what's going on, but in this movie, I just totally was able to follow all the action, and it was off the rails, it was chaotic, and just like the creativity in this film to me is what really stands out. Really ties into the title of the film, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's just like
all over the place.
Yeah, for better or worse, I kind of get that's the intention of the writers. But they really threw everything at this movie. What did you like?
Yeah, I love, like I mentioned at the very beginning, the concept of jumping through universes. I feel like when this movie was announced and the concept of it was announced, like the plot, I feel immediately people jumped into like comic books, like, oh, is it gonna be like a Doctor Strange thing where people are jumping through universes and there's a multiverse. But when we finally go to watch it and you see how uniquely well made that it's created with the whole headset, I think that was like a very, very smart way to kind of connect the way that people could jump through universes. I loved it. There was a lot of little things in the film that was pretty cool. I love how the old man in the wheelchair, feel like let's see, what was his name? I know his name was Gong Gong in the film, but James Hong. He was the guy in the wheelchair. He was the voice of the goose in Kung Fu Panda. So immediately when I heard that voice, I was like, oh, I know that voice. You could hear him.
Yeah, I couldn't tell where he was from. And now that you mention it, yeah, that does make sense. He's quite old too. I was just checking his Wikipedia page, but yeah, that totally makes sense. He does sound like that guy. The goose who's the father.
The father, yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But aside from that, like I love, like I mentioned, how we were talking about the choreography with these fights. I feel to myself that it was very inspired by your classic Jackie Chan type films, which, I hope it's like fair to say that all these, like with Shang-Chi, these Asian inspired films, they do take inspiration from the OG Jackie Chan, and that was really fun. I really liked that, and like the jokes I think were pretty spot on. Of course, there was a couple of them that were dragged on a little too long.
Right.
But there was
overall the humor was good.
Overall, the humor was pretty good.
Overall, it was pretty good. We can talk more about what didn't work on the humor, but I think it's supposed to be a chaotic film, and some of the crude humor with the sex jokes felt very like Rick and Morty-ish, kind of little cringe, but you kind of just have to buy into it, and not really take it too seriously, and get into like the goofiness act of it. But what really made it, I think, successful for so many people is the acting. The actors really brought it together. You have all sorts of crazy, gross stuff in the film, but the actors did such a good job that some of the emotional parts still landed. And
yeah, definitely.
You have to give credit to them, and how they were able to put this whole thing together.
Oh my god, definitely. I feel when you're watching the movie and you see like certain parts of the film where they're jumping through a bunch of scenarios, different universes, like all at once, you can tell the work that put into it, like quickly changing wardrobe, changing makeup for these actors, like for a split second shot in the film, but it was necessary for it to work. So for these actors to put themselves through that, it says highly about the commitment that they put into this. I thought that was pretty cool.
That was all I can think about during those scenes. It was like something like the quick shot ones. It's like she's wearing this, then she's wearing that, then she's wearing that. I'm like, holy smokes! Like that's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort for everyone involved.
Planning too. Like you got to make sure that you film those or shoot those like at the right time, right order, because it could be hard, going back to the set that you built, back and forth. So yeah, definitely a really well made.
Yeah, there were times in this movie where the editing was really well done. Generally, like per scene, in the actual scene, the editing was really well done. Does it drag at times? Yeah, but when you look at the actual scenes, actual moments, the quick cuts you were talking about, excellent job by the director, the editing team there.
Great visionaries for sure. And I want to go back real fast. One last point I want to make when it came to the fight scenarios. What I love is how we're finally starting to transition to these more realistic type of fight scenes. I remember if we look back to films like Taken or Taken 2, even that whole trilogy, there's all kinds of jump cuts when it comes to fighting to kind of give you that sort of like quick feeling in your mind of like, oh, things are happening, gotta pay attention, it's all wild. But now you see like a straight 30-second to a minute shot of people fighting, and like the stunt team's amazing, and it feels way more realistic. I remember the stunt coordinator for John Wick, he mentioned that how when they filmed the first John Wick movie, they wanted to jump away from all the jump cuts and all the editing, and they wanted to make it feel very surreal. And so I love that that's finally carrying over to plenty of more films from here on out. I think that's a great way that we're going.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. and in this film, it's all about the effort.
Yeah.
You could tell like, yeah, there's some movies like Taken or typical Liam Neeson action movie. The efforts, yeah, they're just sloppily put together. But in this one, you could definitely tell they poured their heart and soul into crafting it. Oh yeah, what did you think about the story overall? Because you could argue this is essentially two stories, or I mean, there's a million stories. The name of the movie is Everything Everywhere All at Once. But it kind of opens up with following Evelyn. She's going through her life. It's chaotic, and then it kind of turns into like The Matrix. We're like, okay, it's gonna turn into a sort of funny version of that. But then it does a 180. Spoilers, by the way.
As always.
As always. Yeah. Not a complete 180, but it turns into, it kind of like abandons that plot line about the story about her relationship with her daughter and her father and her husband. Still keeps the wackiness in there, but it doesn't really revisit the Matrix stuff. What did you think about that?
Yeah, this story was very personal. You could tell right away. I feel like this film was heavily catered, or not catered, I shouldn't say that. I feel like it was heavily inspired by unique Asian American traumas. I feel like this story did.
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think this story tackled emotions that Asians can't really show to their parents. I feel like it tackled ideas of where, say like older generations have to do their job not because they want to, because they're forced to. Like how she took over,
Right.
that laundry mat, and like she's taking care of her dad, which probably is not happy with her husband. And she can't say nothing about that or talk back to him. And she felt and Evelyn, I just mentioned, the person we're talking about, Evelyn, the mom, she felt kind of guilty bringing up to her dad that her daughter is gay, which I think was a huge thing about.
That was definitely influenced. Yeah.
Definitely, because that's kind of unheard of right now in like Asian American families. So I love everything that you were mentioning about how the story was going and what you liked about it. But that's the kind of the view that I took it as this was a way of tackling Asian American stereotypes and breaking them, and I think they nailed that.
Yeah, and Evelyn, she's essentially having like a midlife crisis in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Right off the bat, there's just chaos around her. Her daughter has needs. I think it's her father has needs. Her husband's handing her divorce papers, and she doesn't even notice it because they gotta deal with the IRS. So in a way, like her mind, and I'm gonna try to plug the title of the movie as many times as I can today. Like her mind was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, but really, it was just chaotic, and I thought the movie did a really good job of putting us in her shoes, relating to the character, because a lot of us, naturally do have a lot of things going on all the time as well.
Yeah.
You don't have to be, in your 40s or 50s, but at the same time, yeah, a lot of the experiences were kind of culturally crafted towards what she might have experienced even in her own life. And interesting enough, like one of her side characters was essentially, I think, her as an actress, Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
Doing the kung fu stuff. And I thought that was just a lot of fun to watch, like, the different possibilities. You make one decision and your life turns out this way and that way. So I really enjoyed those parts of it.
What did you think about this film being entirely focused inside the IRS building? Do you think there's like some kind of like meaning behind that, or do you think it was just a convenient place for all this action to take place?
I didn't really think about that until you mentioned it. Cause there's some scenes like in the laundromat, outside, but yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of it is in the IRS building. Well, for one, it's probably cheaper to just pick one location for them to produce them. A lot of these films do have smaller budgets, but I think it helps kind of like keep the movie a little more. I don't want to say the word grounded because it's all over the place, but it just kind of keeps building and building. The story builds, the characters build, but we haven't really changed the setting too much.
Right.
So that's really interesting that you point that out. Why did you view it differently?
See, I feel this movie was filled with just nonstop symbolism. You got the googly eyes, you got the IRS building, you got sort of the, I guess you could even bring up, the headpieces that they wear. Like everything that they do is all symbolism. This whole film was filled with it. So I'm trying to think my hardest, like, I mean, like, what is the IRS building representing in this, because I feel like when we think of the IRS, we think of like this boring gray building filled with suits, and
Yeah.
and they just suck the life out of you. So I guess now that I'm talking about it out loud, I feel like it's like the opposite. Evelyn and her husband are trying to bring life back into the relationship, while the IRS building represents the sucking the life out of them. Which in reality, it was the IRS, the taxes. It was like breaking them apart. The Evelyn and her husband Wayman, because the receipts and all the issues they were having. So I feel like symbolically, looking at it face value, I felt like it was beautiful to see how IRS, known for ruining lives, kind of brought them back together. So that's kind of how I see it.
Wow. Yeah. No. That's definitely a really interesting way of looking at it. 'Cause that was probably related to the rift and why her husband had handed her the divorce papers. Because their life was essentially a struggle. But that definitely interesting to see. Also, kind of weird random fact was this movie got a wide release the weekend before taxes were due.
Oh my god!
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but just sort of a super random fact.
That's funny. Yeah.
In this movie, a lot of the characters have multiple personalities, essentially because they're from different dimensions. The Alphaverse.
Oh my god! Like the name,
what it's called.
Just the name. I hated that word so much. It was so cringy.
It's I think it was like a vessel. The name Alphaverse is kind of like, listen, we need to think of something. All right, we're gonna call the multiverse. What do we call it? Alphaverse. All right, great. A lot of like because I find it interesting that people compare this movie to The Matrix, because I'm like, it's nothing like The Matrix. Like, it has like a certain portion of the film that's like The Matrix, and then it just uses that stuff as a vessel for the emotional character story it's trying to tell. So I didn't really like see that. I see like the homage to it and all that, or homage, but other than that, I don't see it like that similar. But going back to what I was saying about the characters, they have like different personalities. So, like the one in like the world we were in, the husband is kind of like, kind of fed up with this, through with this. And the one where they never really got together, he was saying, I thought the best part of the movie for me, without a doubt, where he's like, oh, I would have loved to have, done taxes and that sort of stuff
dude,
with
that broke me when he said that to her.
That was the best part. If the movie had ended there, I would have been probably a little more higher on it. I'm like, oh, finally, I see how it's coming together. But yeah, that part was incredibly powerful.
Very powerful. And I feel like even in that one moment where Evelyn, I guess, like, she held his hand and she was able to see all of his flashbacks, all of like his memories and all the fun times that he had with her. And it really got me emotionally, because it felt like Evelyn ignored all that, or she overlooked all the happy times that they had, but Wayman was so focused on that. Like, they had their downs and maybe they were struggling or not the happiest, but he found joy in every single moment of their life. And maybe that's why they called their daughter Joy. But that's a good point. But I love the flashbacks, and like how you mentioned when he told her, like, I would have been happy just doing, the bare minimum with you. And I was like, that's a husband who cares. And I feel like, again, going back to it, that's probably tackling Asian American stereotypes of like how a lot of Asian, older generation men, they're like emotionless. They don't even know how to say the word "I love you" most of the time. So for them,
he was really kind,
very kind, and very selfless and open. And I feel like that was.
But he handed her the divorce papers. That's what I didn't get. Why was he handing her the divorce papers? He was doing it to bring, so she would like wake up a little bit.
Exactly.
Right?
They were talking about that in the van, about how like his friend did that, and it kind of brought them back together.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But then in the climax of the movie, we kind of see her take his advice in a way and be like, you know what, just like be kind. And when she's doing like that, the fighting with all the bad guys, she's like giving them what they want, what makes them happy, and there's so many themes in this film. So many relationships in this film that it's exploring. There's people out there on Reddit, on Twitter, everywhere saying this is not just one of the favorite movies of 2022 that they've seen, but also one of the best movies they've ever seen. Some people say it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Does it fall in that category for you? Because people are really raving about this film.
Yeah, I think people are raving for it because of how original it is. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
people have been so fogged up with all these like basic storylines,
Well,
basic kind
just
of
big
films.
blockbusters, you know.
Exactly. And just
Yeah.
things to bring in money. And for this one to come out and also tackle personal issues like, family and emotions, I feel like that brought people to take this movie to the highest, standard. But to me personally, I feel, man, it's crazy to go against the tide or against the current, but
Yeah.
it's a good movie. It's a good movie, but I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's my top 5. Probably wouldn't say it's my top
Not
7.
even my
Maybe
top 50, I
maybe
think.
top 10 for me. Yeah, but
Maybe. I mean, that's for me, but yeah.
it's a good film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I listen. I go into any movie saying like, listen, I'm gonna let this movie take me. I don't care what it's about, what message it's trying to send. I'm here for 2 hours. Show me what you got. Absorb me into your message, your film, and I promise I'll give you good review afterwards.
Yeah.
So I really, really tried to love this film or like this film. I didn't know anything about it heading in. I had seen some of the review scores. That's about it. I'm genuinely, if you love this movie, I'm actually happy for you. I wish I could have loved it, but I'm genuinely baffled at how much praise it's gotten because in my opinion, originality doesn't necessarily mean you should get a high score or just because you made me emotional for like a tiny bit, or I mean even if it's very emotional, like that doesn't necessarily make a great film. But I was just curious to hear your thoughts about that because we talked a lot about what we liked, what worked for
Yeah.
us, but for me overall this film doesn't really come together like how I wished it would. I thought there were too many ideas that they tried to stuff in there.
Uh-huh.
I know it's the name of the movie, everything everywhere all at once, but you still need to be kind of a little more compact. And for me, it felt, especially in the second act, a little all over the place, a little too hectic, just way too much, and not really being able to settle on one idea for the audience.
Right. I think that's a perfect way for us to start getting into more of what didn't work for us when it came to this film. And you brought up a lot of good points. And I agree. This film, I felt at times, had a whole lot of nothing, is how the best way I could put it, where a lot of scenes are probably unnecessary. Probably like, well, when they broke up the film in parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 2 was so exhausting and so
Yeah.
long. Like, I felt like it could have ended at any time and it would have been enough. So
Yeah.
that definitely dragged on for me. And there was a lot of points in the film that I feel like need to be talked more about, how it wasn't so great. I feel like they need to explain more about the whole reality part of it and multiverse part of it. Cause I remember there was one scene where Evelyn comes out of a sealed door and they're in the office, and like I think she drags her dad into like that sealed door area, and
Yeah.
as she comes out, they're all waiting for her. She starts fighting with them, with the kung fu that she learned from her past universe, but she's also fighting with them with her eyes closed. And I was like, did they explain like how she's able to do that?
Yeah.
Like, is there a universe where she's Daredevil and she could easily fight with like her senses? I didn't.
Yeah, it was just they were just trying to make us like kind of buy into it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like that's what I mean. Like, there's times when there was like too much exposition, and there was times when they didn't like explain anything, and I was
Right.
like a little overwhelmed and lost. Like, I get it's a powerful story. Like for example, the scene with the rocks, like that's supposed to be kind of like that moment in the film where it's telling you like, hey, this is like the story we're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And the writing in that scene was a little, not that good. It was a little like, I get the point they're trying to say, like nihilism and all that, but then it extended, and then there was another scene they went back, and it just kept like beating you over the head with the same message over and over and
Yeah.
over again. And I was like, all right, enough. Like, I get it. I get what you're trying to say.
Yep.
So just show me what you want to do. So towards the second act, like you said, there's so many. Like, I thought the movie could have ended like at any time, and then like, okay, great, this is the ending. Like when I was mentioning earlier with the husband saying like, I would have loved to have done that stuff with you. I'm like, okay, that's it. Nope, there's another one after. Gotta go talk to her dad. Nope, no, it's about her. It's about her daughter. And I didn't really understand necessarily the relationship between Joy and Evelyn. I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't know. Like at the end, she's like, I hate you so much. I guess they didn't show us that stuff. She's like, just leave me alone, like give me space.
Yeah.
But they didn't really show us. The only thing they really showed us was her not saying that, hey, this is, my daughter's girlfriend in front of her dad.
Yeah, I feel like we could touch on her daughter a little bit right now. First of all, like on face value, I disliked Joy's acting. I felt like she was not so good, like very forced at times, like making us believe that she's like a badass character, and in reality, it's like you're kind of coming off a little bit on the cringy side.
She reminded me of a villain from, what's that one movie? Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So I guess it was like, it wasn't the best acting. I guess she was kind of supposed to be like over the top. She's just supposed to be like a teenager, right? In this film.
I think so. Well,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like post high school, but still like young. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen her in anything else.
Me either. But what I do want to like talk about when it came with Joy is how she was that all evil character. Was it Jobu Tobaki? Which I think was...
Yes, that's what it was the name.
Like, what does that name even come from, first of all?
Jobu Tupaki.
Like, does it have a hidden meaning? Like, do you know?
I have no idea.
Here, let's see. Like,
but that's the thing. Like, it's like all that stuff was like, I don't know. It's like there's like the Alpha Joy and there's Jobu Tupaki, and they have the story. It's like, and I think the directors even said like, yeah, the movie's not about that. We just use that stuff as a vessel.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Tell the different story, but still, it's just like, you shouldn't have to explain that to me. It should have done a little bit better. The whole theme of the film, in my opinion, is kind of saying like, nothing truly matters is how Joy feels. She wants to destroy herself because of how overwhelmed by everything she is. But then her mom treats her with kindness. Like I said, there's so much going on in this film. It felt like it could have been like a TV show, and maybe it would have worked a little bit better for me. But yeah, the some of the stuff with Joy was a little confusing.
It definitely fell flat a little bit. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say for this film that didn't work for me, aside from like that raccoon bit that was overplayed. And then,
my goodness.
It was funny the first time, but when you keep going back to it, it's like you could have cut all that out and made the movie shorter. And then there was
2 hours and how long is this movie?
How long is it? Actually, that's a good point. Let me see.
139 minutes. Oh my goodness.
How long is that in years?
In years?
can you convert for me?
It's like a couple hours and 20 minutes.
Okay, so I mean, it's like that's kind of like the average that films are going for nowadays. I feel like once you hit Avengers Endgame and all that, once you start breaking that 2 hour limit, movies are like, well, I think people can handle that now. But anyways, still too long. There was a point.
The humor was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mentioned the humor, but there was a point. There's a scene where I believe that people are trying to shoot at Evelyn, and then all of a sudden the bullets turned into like googly eyes. And that tripped me up because I was like, wait, can Evelyn now manipulate reality? Or like, how can she start doing all this stuff? So, yeah.
I guess she had become like she had become her version of the Alpha Joy. That's the way I saw it. Because the Alpha Joy was like able to do whatever she wanted. And then Evelyn was like, oh, I'm going to, instead of like just killing her like my grandpa or my dad wants, I'm going to try to become as powerful as her so I can like reach out to her.
I guess.
So I think that's essentially what happened towards the end. But yeah, I mean, like stuff like that, it felt, I don't want to say unearned, but like just like the way it got there, like I feel like I saw like 15 movies in a way, all packaged up in one. That's how I saw it. Were you gonna make a different point about the googly eyes?
No, that's pretty much all I was gonna say.
Yeah, the humor, like the raccoon scene, they kept bringing it back. They did some interesting stuff with it, like the hot dog stuff. They kept doing. I'm like, okay, this is like so dumb. I'm over this scene.
Yes.
But then they're like, oh, in this universe, we learn how to play piano with our toes. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of a cool way of tying it. But I'm like, but why? Like, why do I care about that? It just like
exactly.
Was that related to like people should deal with like the hand they're given? I think it kind of was, but that kind of goes back to my point about like too many ideas in this film. And it doesn't really cover all of them in enough depth. But yeah, some of the humor also was very, I don't like to use the word cringy because I kind of like to buy into the film, but it was just kind of like, I don't know, I feel like if I was 16, I'd be laughing at this a lot more.
There was people in my theater that were cracking up at the hot dog scenes.
Really?
And I'm like, what's funny about this? It's kind of, too much right now.
It was funny the first time. It's like, oh, that's really goofy looking.
Yeah, first time.
But then after that, yeah, then after they kept bringing it back, I was like, my goodness, this is just long.
The
But
the one the
yeah,
one part of that what I want to bring up is in those hot
mhm.
dog hand scenes is I do love how they show that in that universe Evelyn is also gay. She was like living with that
Oh
IRS
yeah,
agent.
yeah,
So that was nice to see the show that even though Evelyn may have been embarrassed that her daughter is gay in a universe, she's also gay. But like you could have done that
right.
without the hot dog fingers, in my opinion.
With Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah.
Yeah, was it Halloween, right? That's
Yeah.
what she's mainly not known in.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess like the whole hot dog stuff, it's like it's supposed to be like this. The film is supposed to be like nothing matters. Life is as goofy as possible. It's like as crazy as
Ooh,
possible.
okay, yeah.
But nothing really matters. So like I've read that online. People are trying to say that that's why it's like all over the place. Like the everything bagel and the hot dog fingers and the raccoon. It's because like life is this crazy thing, but nothing matters. Just be kind. Okay. Like, did you need to take like what I mean?
Yeah,
Part
yeah.
of me is after the movie is just kind of like so what?
Right. And
So,
you
all right, that's your message. That's your message. Like that's fine. Didn't need to take that long to explain it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, be kind. All right.
you said something that I want to discuss with you when it came to the everything bagel, and like towards the end of the film when we see that bagel like pretty much like a black hole. What did you think about that? Like just the bagel concept. Like how did you interpret that concept?
So I'm gonna cheat. Okay.
Oh, so you read about it.
So I'm gonna I just read about it today.
Okay.
I'm gonna read a quote
Oh,
from the director
hold
Daniel
on.
Kwan.
Hold on. Before you
Why
give-
don't you go?
Yeah, before
Why
you
don't you
give
give
the
it a
real
shot?
reason, let me tell you and everyone listening what I felt it meant.
That's fair.
So this is what I felt. Especially towards the end of the film when they're going up that staircase or they're in that like that all white type of movie set where they're looking at that bagel and it's sucking everything in. So I felt that the bagel was pretty much their point of no return is how I would say it. So again, tackling these Asian American stereotypes, a lot of times when say like the the children, if they say they want to do like a college degree in like maybe art or something that's not the stereotypical roles that they want their kids to do, they kind of shun them away or kind of in extreme cases disown them, and family gets ripped apart and they go their own ways and never talk to each other, kind of how like in the movie Evelyn was saying to his dad, like, how can you feel so happy of kicking me out and not talking to me for so long? Like, look what you did. How can you be okay with that? So this is what I think. I think towards the end of the film, when Joy was trying to walk into that everything bagel, into that void, that black hole, to me, that was me telling myself that's Joy's way of wanting to get away from Evelyn, from her mom, and never forgive her again for what she did to her. And I think,
What did she do to her?
feel embarrassed. Couldn't even tell her dad that she was gay, or it felt yeah. So,
but was that it? That was the only thing.
so that's how I felt was probably like most hurtful to her, and I think Joy was trying to also drag Evelyn into the bagel, into that black hole, so that Evelyn can also
relate or understand.
like never forgive Joy, and they could both leave each other, and Joy would have less guilt. So I think Joy was forcing her to also split up so that Joy would be like, okay, we both don't want to see each other anymore, instead of being just one-sided. So I really felt that was like interpreted to be like, once you go through that and you can't go back, it's over. Like you won't talk to your parents ever again, and you're on your own. And she wanted less guilt of doing it on her own, so she wanted to bring her mom with her. That's kind of how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I think I was a little lost at what was going on at times. I thought the bagel was trying to talk about like, it's this thing that's going to take over the world and they need to fight it together. So I'll say my thoughts that before I read the quote from one of the directors, but
Okay.
I was looking at it as like her depression or something like piled up, and like every like negative energy or a negative thing about Joy had been put into this bagel. That's like the way I saw it. Like all of her bad memories, bad dreams, bad things that happened with her mother, her family, whatever it was, all of that like pent up energy created that like everything bagel. But I'll read to you what the co-director Daniel Kwan said.
Okay.
So he says that the bagel concept does two things for them. Allows them to talk about nihilism without being too like eye rolly. So it's essentially like a MacGuffin. It's a doomsday device, and the twist or the idea behind it is that in the first half of the film, you think that the bagel is here to like destroy the world, and in the second half, you realize that it's Joy essentially trying to destroy themselves. So it seems like their intention was to take, this whole like action movie, like there's like this Death Star thing out here, and make it into a more personal thing. So I think that's just kind of what it was trying to do. So I think you got the nail on the head with like it's related to Joy, and hence the name. Why they said everything bagel, because it's like everything, right? All of that energy, emotions, all put on this bagel of doom.
Yeah, no, I think
Sounds-
that was really deep. I love what the directors had to say about that. But man, I feel for Joy or anyone who goes through these kinds of emotional traumas. I remember before I saw this film, I was on TikTok and I was seeing videos of people talking about it, saying like, oh, don't watch this film if you have unhealed family trauma. Don't watch this film if you have a bad communication with your parents. And I was like, wow, like what is this movie really gonna tackle now? I'm kind of curious. But it
Are they joking though?
No,
Like,
they were serious. It's not like a serious.
But you should watch the film. But isn't that the whole point?
Yeah.
Like this like movie would be really, because otherwise, who's the movie for if it's not for people who have these issues?
Exactly. I'm pretty sure like it's just them giving like their people like, oh, a trigger warning, by the way, if you see this film, it's gonna like bring up like suppressed emotions that you've been hiding. And I think we all have that. I think we all have like a shelf of jarred up emotions that we're too afraid to bring up ever again.
Oh,
so
yeah, definitely.
and I think,
like I said, I think. Go ahead.
I was gonna say is I think this film allows people to kind of revisit their emotions and maybe help in some way heal them. But what were you gonna say?
Hopefully, yeah. No, I was just gonna say like I think for everyone it's gonna be different. Like there might be a bunch of maybe younger people who are really related to Joy, her character. I at times felt related to maybe Evelyn's character, and I just felt like I feel like overwhelmed with so many things going on in life. Like at one single time. So I think like depending on who you are, what kind of background you have, you're gonna relate to a different character in a different way, if that makes sense.
Definitely, I feel like this movie definitely helps a lot when you grew up in a less emotional home. I feel like it gives those people kind of an outlet to get a taste of what that feels like. But overall, I think this film did pretty well when it came to tackling issues, tackling choreography, tackling cinematography, and although it was pretty long, the story was nice. I could leave it at that.
Yeah. But so what are your thoughts overall? Do you recommend this? Do you not recommend it?
Oh,
For
yeah.
people online who are saying they don't recommend it for the trigger warning. As a film, do you recommend it? What's your overall score?
Oh, definitely recommend it, 100%. If we're going into our score now, I'll just talk about it real fast. I feel like this movie, I love the idea how it was broken up into parts, and I know right away that each part had its own theme. And I feel like the titles had deeper meanings according to like their section of the film. It reminds me sort of like that episode people might remember in Adventure Time where there was a Gables episode where you had to guess the theme by just watching the episode.
Well, spoilers. No, I'm just
Oh my god! If you have not seen Adventure Time by now, do not listen to our podcast. Like that is a prerequisite.
I haven't seen it. Should I mute like your audio?
I think I need to kick you off the boat now. I think you just don't deserve to be here. You need to see Adventure
It's
Time.
been on the list. It's been on the list. Season 1 is a drag, man.
Season 1's a drag. You gotta skip to season 2 or 3. But that's how I felt, and I think it was very beautiful. I feel like if you're the type of person to be very emotional, to have be very selfless and kind of wear your heart on your sleeve, this movie is gonna tackle or tickle those parts of your of your mind, of your body. like we mentioned earlier, the scenes when the husband's having flashbacks, or when in another universe, and the husband says, "Oh, I would do anything, just to be with you." A lot of people are gonna probably feel like, "Oh man, like, that's me. Like I would be happy doing anything with my person." And then maybe towards the end of the film, when Evelyn's talking to Joy, saying like, "I'm sorry for being a bad mother. I'm sorry for disregarding you and your feelings." I feel like a lot of people who are going through that are gonna really, really love that, especially those who watch it with their parents. It's gonna be probably a gateway to having the discussions at home. But aside from all that, I believe the use of colors was fantastic. I feel like we mentioned, like the fight scenes were just so well choreographed. We keep saying that over and over again, but it's so true.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch at times.
Definitely fun to watch, and at times catches you off guard, like with Waymond, the husband, eating the chapstick to kind of like trigger, past the universe. I'm like, whoa, like that's an interesting idea. And then when they're fighting and the whole butt plug scene happens, I'm like, wow, like this is actually some top tier comedy, like
crazy stuff. Yeah,
you would never think about it. But
yeah, the scene with the chapstick and like the fight one after, that was probably my favorite part of the movie.
100%.
The whole sequence. Yeah.
But then you start to think about the bad parts of it. Talk about some overplayed comedy bits. You talk about how a lot of concepts were not explained properly. You start talking about how like it felt dragged on, and at the end of the day, it was a decent film. So I would give this 3.5 tickets out of 5 tickets. Definitely worth watching. Definitely an eye opener. But that's where I stand. Is it the greatest film of all time? Personally, no.
I mean, not if you're giving it a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, personally, no. But I still think it's well made, and it deserves the hype that it has right now. I'm sorry, I went too long, but tell me what you think.
Yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once is really well crafted at times in terms of like the actual film making. Has a strong message. It could be really fun, but for me, it didn't completely come together. I appreciate it for being different, for having sometimes the more serious messages. But at the end of the day, you watch a movie. Either it gets you or it doesn't get you. Or either you get it or you don't get it. I felt a little bit in the middle here. So if you love this movie, I'm really happy for you. I really, really tried. But I still recommend you go out and see it. If you're listening here, go out and see this movie because, hey, high reward, low risk. You might really love it. It might really resonate with you. But for me, I find it a little too sloppy, a little too stuffed with ideas, especially in the second half of the film. And I think it takes way too long for the film to kind of spell out the metaphor and the messages that it's trying to tell us. And those things really drag it down for me. It really took me out of the film. I was, a little bit bored at times. But overall, it's a 3 out of 5. I think it's just a decent movie. And again, go see it. I cannot score a film high just for the sake of being different. But yeah, 3 out of 5 tickets for me.
3 out of 5. Okay, that's fair. I feel like we've been the same on.
You're only half a point ahead of me.
Only half a point. I feel like
I feel like I'm more negative on it than you were.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't go 4.
I think because I'm as a person, I'm a little more emotional, I think, compared to like other people. So I definitely felt like a lot of connections.
Are you saying I'm not emotional?
I don't know. You're pretty good at having that wall up. Maybe you blocked off a couple things.
No, I emotional movies get me, but I don't know. Some of the stuff, I guess I'll be honest. Like some of the messages like doesn't resonate with me as much, but some of them did. But that's not my reason for the little bit lower score, which, again, might surprise some people. Some people might listen to this and be like, hey, screw you guys. You guys don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, like you don't know films.
This is the best damn movie I've ever seen. Why are you guys giving this a 3 out of 5? You guys are crazy. I'm not listening to this podcast anymore.
Yeah. I feel like in the future we need to start keeping tabs of like what our scores are and like total all of it up on average. Like like who's been giving higher scores and who's been giving lower scores. Like that'd be funny to think about in the future.
Yeah.
But
I just gotta say real quick before we wrap up.
Yeah.
So I gave Sonic 2 a 3 out of 5 last week. Let me just say this. This does not mean that Sonic 2 is on the same level of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Absolutely not. I go into a movie. The score, first of all, the score is just the score. The recommendation is what matters. I go into a movie and say, listen, and I think you're the same way. This is a kid's movie. It's an action movie. I'm going to base it and grade it on what it's trying to accomplish. Okay, yeah, it was fun. It had a decent story. You know, it was good to watch for the most part. Well edited. All right, 3 out of 5. Kids movie. But for a movie like this that is really it's a little more serious in a way, and it's trying to have this more serious message. All right, I'm going to grade you a little bit more stricter. That's just how it is. That's just how it's going to be. You're going to have more expectations in a way. It's not to say they're the same level. You know, obviously this is a much better film, but I can only grade it based on what it was trying to accomplish to me, the viewer.
Yeah, that's some good clarification, because I know the 2 examples that we can bring up is the 2 highest rated films ever in history: Citizen Kane and Paddington. 2 different
Paddington 2, right?
Paddington 2. 2 very completely different films,
Yeah.
but they're the highest rated probably ever. So that's a good way you clarified it. Like, they're both different, but they tackle their message, respectfully. So I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, Paddington 2 is a masterpiece, though, compared to Sonic 2. Paddington deserves all the praise it gets.
We'll see if one day we review that movie, but there's not much to talk about. We know that's a 5 out of 5.
So what do we got next? Coming up next, Andrew.
What
are we doing next?
Coming up next, we got a little bit of a conundrum going on here.
We don't know what we're doing.
We don't know what we're doing. We're between The Northman and Nicolas Cage's Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So we got a coin to flip, or we got to somehow figure it out.
We will do both.
We will
if
do
you're
both.
Listening,
100%.
We will do both. We probably will not do Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, though.
We could do a small review on our Instagram, which if you follow Tickets for Two podcast on Instagram, you might see that pop up as well.
Digit 4 when you put Tickets for Two podcast.
That's
digit
right.
4.
The number 4. You're right. But with that, I think we tackled everything we needed to say. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, that's it. If you have time, go see this movie. It could change your life, but you might be like me and be more on the fence about it. But like I said, take the chance. Go see it.
Definitely go see it. All right. Thank you very much for all of you listening and tuning in to our 3rd episode of our Tickets for Two podcast. We will see you on the next one when we decide what film we're going to watch. And thank you again.
All right. Ciao.